everybody. Welcome to the stream. Now, after I figured out why the hell I had a feedback, I had a browser tab open with my Twitch somewhere. I couldn't find it. It was in some browser window. There was my Twitch dashboard was open, and that was playing my own stream with sound. So then I had a feedback, and I was like, why am I hearing everything 6 times? But I figured it out. How are you doing? Back on Twitch. I didn't record a show. Well, I did record a show last week, but I didn't manage to put it on Twitch. So we're back. And today's Thursday, isn't it? I'm so confused. So it's not the usual Wednesday, but, recording a podcast. And then if we still have some time and I feel like it, I'm going to play some New World afterwards, I think. At least that's the tentative plan. Let's see how it goes. Let me just check that everything is okay here. We can kind of... Why is that open? That's weird. Okay. Is that playing? It seems to be playing. All right. Let's try to figure this out. Wait. What do I want to do? What do I want? What do I want? What do we want? We want this. Okay. That seems to work. I'm changing my setup a bit, and then I haven't done this in a bit, and it's all very confusing. But let's just try. Do a test recording here. Let's arm everything. Let's go blah 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 blah. Seems to work. Blah 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 blah. That sounds good. Alrighty. Can we go? Can we do this? I think we can. I shall try my best to record a podcast. So yeah. Let us do this, all right? Let us do this. Shit. Can't do it like this. I'm gonna read out the wrong date. I was already planning to record this episode yesterday, so it's kind of yesterday's date. All right. Let's do this again. Burp. You're listening to The Private Citizen, defending your right to have something to hide. This is episode 131 for Thursday, the 10th of November, 2022. The new Caste system. Caste, right? It's Caste. Fuck it. Fuck it. Fuck this shit. Take 3. Gonna do it live. Take 3. You're listening to The Private Citizen, defending your right to have something to hide. This is episode 131 for Thursday, the 10th of November, 2022, the new caste system. Hello everybody, my name is Fab. I'm coming to you live from Düsseldorf in Germany on a Thursday. This time I'm still trying to record 2 episodes a week. Currently it's not going very well, but I haven't given up hope. It's still the plan. Yeah, so release schedules all over the place, but bear with me here for a little bit. Welcome to the show. I hope you're doing well. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about AI. I've been dealing with that a lot in my day job as a journalist recently and thinking about it, and so I got some thoughts about AI. I mean, I'm a bit jaded on what AI actually is anyway, so I'm going to explain that in the beginning of the show a little bit, and then we're going to go into what I think this whole, let's call it a movement, means for our society as a whole. I think there's some very interesting things afoot, and I think we need to talk about it. I think it's very important. But yeah, so thanks for being here. Hello. If you're new to the show, welcome. We're a podcast. Well, it's kind of started as a privacy podcast. It's also a political podcast because everything's kind of political, isn't it, when you get down to it? And it's kind of evolved. We then had the pandemic happening. I talked about, civil liberties a lot, and it's all intertwined. So these days we talk about all kinds of stuff. Of course, because I'm a tech journalist, I talk about tech a lot. And that's what's gonna happen today as well. If you go to the show notes, if you go to privatecitizen.press, privatecitizen.press, that's where the show notes are, that's the website. And you go to episode 131, you'll find the notes and everything I've kind of used to make the episode, to produce the episode, so you can look at stuff yourself. This podcast is aimed at critical thinking, so that's what you're supposed to do. So I'd like to give you all the tools to do that, and to not just believe what I say, but just also build your own kind of opinions and thoughts about it, and then give me feedback on that. That's going to be as always the second part of the show, but all details on how to contact me and tell me what you think are also in the show notes. privatecitizen.press. Today, whatever time it is for you, the show notes are a bit minimalistic, which is basically because I'm just talking about things I've kind of been thinking about, so I don't really have written notes, and there's really no links that not that many links that I could give you, but it's still important to know where the show notes are. And with that, I think we should get into the show and get into the meat of the show and the topic I want to talk about. So I want to talk a little bit about AI today, and in the beginning of this, I'm going to explain a little bit what what people say when they say artificial intelligence, and what I kind of mean by it, to kind of have a level playing field here for everybody to understand what I'm talking about. But before we do that, so basically what I'm going to talk about, what my theory is, that's kind of the overarching theme for this episode. I think that AI, or let's just call it algorithms, will create a new kind of caste system in the world, a situation where we have 2 kinds of people. And for that, I want to play, before we get into it, I want to play a clip from my favorite movie of all time, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I think it is the best movie ever made. I haven't seen a movie that's any better. And there's a very famous quote in that about, 2 kinds of people in the world, which kind of applies.
You see, in this world, there's 2 kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig.
That, of course, is the great Clint Eastwood in probably his best role as the man with no name. And yes, there are two kinds of people in the world: those with loaded guns and those who dig. And you dig, and that is what we are talking about today as well. In my case here, I think there's two kinds of people. There will be two kinds of people in the world: those with loaded algorithms and those who dig, or in other words, those who understand how algorithms work and program them and control them, and those who do the digging or do the work or do what the algorithm tells them. I'm going to talk about, generally going forward, I'm going to talk about algorithms. Now, what I'm talking about, marketing people would probably call AI, artificial intelligence. I don't like that term. Because artificial intelligence has nothing, and anybody who, like, I've talked to people who teach this topic at university, and they will tell you that, artificial intelligence has nothing to do with intelligence. We do not understand, as somebody who has a big interest in biology, partly because of my wife, who is doing science in that regard. He actually works with neurons, not in the brain, but in the heart. But, neurons are neurons. So I'm kind of interested in this topic. We do not understand how human intelligence works at all. At a bird's eye view, we understand a little bit about how the brain works. We understand quite a lot about how neurons work, but it's kind of like, the sum of its parts. There are some very good Star Trek The Next Generation episodes that center around data and, artificial intelligence, basically, and that talk about how this works. And I think most of that was discussed there in the 80s and early 90s still applies. So we do understand, like, how the parts interact largely, how neurons work, how they transmit electrical impulses and all of that. But, like, it gets so complex so fast that we then don't understand what it does. And also the human brain is not something that, it's, any organ, as anybody who's ever dealt in biology with a very specific topic will tell you, the heart kind of works the same. But if you get down to it, every heart is different. Every person's heart is different, which is why when you have a heart attack and, they want to do something to, to treat you, for example, catheter ablation, they will actually do, like, it's this very minimally invasive surgery, but, like, while they kind of treat you, they at the same time figure out what's wrong and how your heart works, because every heart is different, right? Every heart reacts differently, and you basically have to figure out at live, while you're looking at the patient what is broken and what is. It's not like a car, right? Where you like these days, when there's something broken on your car, they do relatively rudimentary not rudimentary, but they do, like, standardized diagnostics, and they go like, it's, the steering isn't right, so it's something with the steering column, and it's this part, and then they just usually replace. They don't figure out what actually broke, like what little nut or screw or whatever joint broke. They'll probably just replace, like, a part of the steering column, right? Because it's all standardized, because that's, that model of car is always the same, and that part is always the same. So you can narrow it down to, like, this is broken, and then they replace that part. And you can't do that in biology, right? You have to actually figure out what is wrong with the person, and all people are always, all of them are different. And with the brain, it's even more complicated. So as an example, I guess I've probably talked about AI on the show before, so I might have said this before, but, like, that example of when they do brain surgery, right? When they do open brain surgery, and they basically have to, let's say you have a tumor or something in the brain, and they have to cut a part of your brain out. They will actually cut your head open and then have you perform tasks, and they will like anesthetize part of your brain that they want to cut out to see what it actually does when they do that, right? They kind of disable that part of your brain for a bit, and then they see what that does to you. So there's this famous example where they have people, who play the violin. They're playing the violin while they test that, while their brains cut open. And that is because everybody's brain is different. Especially the brain is an organ that it's kind of like the internet. The techies say about the internet that it roots around problems and was built that way. And the brain's kind of the same way. It is amazing. There are some people who've been shot through the brain. They had a bullet travel through all of their brain, and it's like cut out large chunks of their brain. And then they wake up in hospital and they can't speak and they can't walk, and you can retrain that. And a lot of these people can actually, even though they have huge chunks of their brain missing, it takes a lot of work, takes years of rehab, but at the end of that, they're like almost indistinguishable from other people that just walk around, because while we can't, like your brain can't, like if you cut something out of your brain, the neurons don't grow back, right? You don't get they grow back, but you don't get new neurons. So every neuron you kill, like me, by drinking a lot of alcohol or by getting shot in the brain or by having brain surgery, is gone forever. But your other neurons kind of grow and they kind of root around the problem. And so it's very different. And that's also how the brain develops itself when you grow up, right? So depending on, just because everybody grows up differently, has different experiences, everybody's brain will be different. So you can't just say, you can't say, okay, this is the hippocampus, it generally does that. But you can't say, okay, this part of the brain does this kind of calculation or whatever. So we don't know that about the brain, about our brains, right? We have very limited knowledge there. So that explains why we don't know how human intelligence works, right? We have scientific data, we can look at how people process information, but actually understanding how the brain does that and how the collections of neurons which we understand really does it, we don't know. We kind of know how neurons work. We have theories on how that actually, how our brain does things, but we don't really know. We can't build an artificial brain. We can't build data. We can't build a whatever. In Star Trek, it's a positonic brain. We can't do that because we don't know how our brain works. So since we don't know how intelligence works, we have absolutely no hope of building artificial intelligence, right? Because we don't know how to build intelligence. We don't know how our own intelligence is built. We don't even know that for animals. We can't even tell you how a mouse does things. How does a rat walk around a maze? What neurons do what? Right? We know, okay, these are connected to the eye and they do this kind of thing. But in an overarching thing, we can't do it. We can't build an artificial rat. We can build a system that kind of behaves like a rat. We could, of course, build an algorithm, that finds its way around a maze. That is easy. Every video game has that. That's what pathfinding is, right? So that's easy. But that is not actually intelligence. That is a relatively simple computer program that emulates, that maybe even passed the Turing test. That's why a lot of people, interestingly, when researching artificial intelligence, I saw to a lot of people, and a lot of them actually say that the Turing test, for example, is bullshit. They don't like the Turing test. So the Turing test is a famous thing invented by Alan Turing during World War II or thereafter, which just basically says that if you can build if you build a computer program that, if a person interacts with this computer program, if you sit a person in a room in front of the screen, right, and they can't tell you if, they talk to a person through the computer, through the keyboard and screen, and they can't tell you if what they are talking to is actually another person or a computer program, then the computer program is said to have passed the Turing test. And this is often taken as a kind of a benchmark for a certain, level of artificial intelligence, but it has nothing to do with intelligence. It's just, you can achieve that by just tricking the person. The algorithm doesn't even need to be specifically intelligent. It just needs to solve that one problem. right? Behave like a human being would behave when you talk through a keyboard and a screen. And that's actually a solvable problem. That's something you can easily solve these days. But that doesn't mean, that just means that program is very optimized towards, the Turing test. It's not optimized towards actually solving any kind of problem. So it has actually nothing to do with intelligence. Because, intelligence is like a good benchmark for human intelligence, or even like animal intelligence. Is like you put an organism into a situation that it's never been in before, and have it solve a problem that it knows nothing about, that it's never seen before, and see how well this organism, this person, solves this problem. And humans are relatively good at that, which is why we kind of dominate the planet by now. Some other factors, opposable thumbs are an important factor here. The ability to run very fast when there's an animal, well, relatively fast, or just, climb trees. But like even the climbing trees, that is something like, that animals that, don't possess this kind of intelligence, that are on a lower level with regards to intelligence. They have certain patterns, certain ways of hiding, and they might be very good. They might be very optimized to what they're doing. But like humans, for example, are very good at especially in a dangerous situation, finding new solutions to problems, which I think I always thought is like a very good benchmark for intelligence, and that is something that computers are relatively bad at. They're getting better at it, and we're gonna talk about machine learning and stuff like that. But generally, I think therefore artificial intelligence is just a stupid term. It's a marketing term. It's a term like blockchain. It doesn't mean anything. Blockchain means something, but I've talked about that before on the show, what it means and what it doesn't mean. It's like it's a thing you can put on things. And I recently talked to a guy who does a lot of research in this area, who said basically he thinks that to him artificial intelligence is just the label that you put on things. He was telling me that he recently saw a coffee machine that was advertised with possessing artificial intelligence, and all this coffee machine literally did that. Why it had this label was so it had this screen, these automatic coffee machines you have in hotels, whatever. They make certain, they make espresso, americano, cappuccino, all kinds of things. They have this screen where you can select it, and all this machine did was it would put the most requested types of coffee, so the stuff that people that use this very specific machine use the most, was just put that on basically the home screen, right? Which is even barely an algorithm. It's just like a text file. You could do that with a text file. You just count how often people tap on a certain product, right? And then you write that into a text file, and then you just put the four options with the highest numbers at the top. Like, even I'm not a programmer. I sometimes dabble in programming, but I'm very bad at it. I can barely write a few lines of Python. Maybe a bit of HTML or CSS. I could solve this. I could solve this problem, right? That is an algorithm that is like basically high school level computing experience. Programming, high school level programming, maybe, and something like that is advertised with artificial intelligence. And this person I was talking to, an expert in this field, was saying, so basically what artificial intelligence is a label for things that look to a human, a customer, maybe a little bit intelligent. That solve a problem for them. Basically, he was basically saying artificial intelligence is now a label for just solving problems. And it has nothing to do with the actual complexity of an algorithm. Now, I always talk about algorithms because basically any kind of artificial it's all algorithms, right? In computers, all algorithms. It's lines of code. It's a mathematical. It's not purely mathematical, right? It involves actually doing math on a computer. It involves storing data, maybe in a database. In a programming language. So that is basically what artificial intelligence is. And that's all we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to call it an algorithm. Now, artificial intelligence in itself is a very wide field. I mean, we could talk about specific types of artificial intelligence. So what most people actually mean, I think, when they say artificial intelligence is machine learning. Now, machine learning is a way of basically getting a computer algorithm to optimize itself, right? You use a lot of data and you train a model, which is a collection of algorithms, to solve a certain problem, right? Let's say, I mean, this I think this mostly started with computer image recognition. So you could, for example, you have the problem, you have photos, and you want to pick out rabbits, right? You have photos of wildlife, and you want to pick out rabbits. That's your solution. Or let's say rabbits and hares are, let's say cats, right? Normal, just garden variety cats. Let's say you want to pick out cats. And you have pictures of dogs and of wolves and of bears and of ducks, and you want cats. Now that is like before machine learning, you would try to write an algorithm that analyzed pictures. I mean, however, it's almost impossible to solve, right? Because like if you had like a side-on drawing of a cat, right? And you had difference of those, you could probably maybe write a very complicated algorithm by hand that would kind of, you'd figure out kind of things that are always the same, and you'd search for that in the image, and you could kind of maybe even solve it. But like with 3D pictures and different lights and black and white and color, whatever, there's no way you could do that. So in machine learning, you kind of have to explain it in case we have some listeners who don't really understand what I'm talking about. You have a system where you kind of what you basically do is you take training data, right? So in this case, you would take pictures of cats, right? You take you get as many different pictures of cats as you can, and you throw it into kind of a algorithm, so a software, basically mathematical formulas that would break these pictures down and see what they have in common. But not like as you would if you wrote an algorithm by hand as a human, but like purely mathematically on a computer-based level, right? The computer would kind of analyze as many pictures of cats as it could and see what they have in common. And computers look at pictures completely different, at photos completely different than people. It would be all, it would probably be, not probably, it would actually, with machine learning as we use it today, it would be impossible for a human to figure out how the computer arrived at this decision. But if you threw enough data at this, the computer would, in the end, to simplify it, come up with a mathematical formula that it would use to analyze a photo and tell you if that there's a cat in that image. And then you'd have trained a model. That would be the model, like this collection of formulas. Or this generally a mathematical formula and an algorithm. And then you could throw all kinds of pictures into it. And if you trained it with enough data, there would be a very good chance that the algorithm could tell you when you throw a picture in if there's a cat in the picture. Of course, that generally never works on the first try. Like if you just train an algorithm with photos of cats, even if you had like millions of them, there's a good chance that if you throw some certain dog photos in there, the algorithm would say, okay, that's a cat. And then you have to like, that would be called supervised machine learning. Then you go and actually refine your model, right? You go, no, this is actually wrong. That's a dog. And then the model changes a little bit. And it's like, okay. And the more you do that and the more data you put in, the better this algorithm gets. Now, by this explanation, you might already see that has nothing to do with intelligence. This is purely brute force. The fact that the more data you have, the better such a system is, it kind of explains that to you, right? It's just kind of brute forcing with lots of data, which is what computers do best. This is why this has nothing to do with intelligence, because biological intelligence works completely different. We kind of don't really know, but computers in the end, are just like the most complicated. Whenever some PR person tells you something about some software, some internet, cloud-based, whatever, you have to remember that in the end, the computer can be broken down. There's 4 operations or that are basically, I don't know how many there are. I'm shit at this kind of thing. I'm shit at programming. But when you break down assembler language, like the actual language that runs on your chip, there's very few operations. It's just adding things, subtracting things, copying things, and even the multiplication and that's already built out of these more simplified operations. There's very few operations. That's what everything's built on. All the software on top of that is just built on very simple. Computers can do very, very little, but they can do what they do extremely fast, which means they can just the faster they get, and we make them faster all the time, the more operations they can do, the more just pure data they can process. That's the thing, in TNG, when data says I can do so many trillion operations every nanosecond. Interestingly, humans are still better at solving certain problems. But anything that you can kind of really break down into this kind of brute force thing, the way you get computers to be really good at things is always breaking it down into very simplified operations that they just can do a lot. And that's basically how machine learning works, right? Which, that doesn't mean it's not powerful, but it's helpful to understand. So in the end, what you create when you have such a model is just a very extremely complicated algorithm, right? That is so complicated that even humans, after you train a model and then you print out what the mathematical operations were, even a genius computer programmer would not be able to understand it, because it's basically it's optimized to how a computer works. And then there's even more complicated things. So there's things called neural networks, and they're kind of, that again sounds like, oh, this is intelligence, this is how humans work. But it's not. It's not how our brain works. It takes an idea from how our brain works. So if you look at our brains, they're a very, very extremely complicated system made out of very simple things called neurons. And they're just connections, right? It's kind of in that regard, it's kind of, again, like a computer, because you can break it down to a very, very simple, just a little thing that basically just transmits electric impulses. And that's just an interconnection. So it's just wiring, right? It's a very fine interconnected wiring that under certain circumstances, just emits electric impulses and kind of, and that's how the brain functions. And neural networks are kind of like this as well, where you go, okay, so we can have relatively simple algorithms, discrete decision. I'm not using technical terms here. I'm trying to explain this if you're not close to the subject. So if I explain any of this wrong, and I have people listening who know more than I about this topic, which is likely, please go to privatecitizen.press and please tell me, and I'm gonna talk about it in a future episode and gonna update everything. But I'm just trying to break this down for normal people, so to speak. So you just have relatively simple discrete decision units. Let's say a thing that is basically also a little algorithm, a little mathematical formula that decides things. and you treat that like kind of like a neuron, and you can chain a lot of these together. And that's basically what a neural network is. It's just like a very complicated system of relatively simple little decision operators that you can, that are capable of very powerful things. Now, one of the actually interesting, and I've put a link to this in the show notes where this is also explained a little bit. One of the interesting things about this machine learning models is that this will be important later when we talk about the societal repercussions of this, is that we don't understand them. So with normal software that runs everything in our lives, normal algorithms, they were built by humans, right? They are code. They have comments, and somebody who knows what they're doing and is close to the subject will be able to understand what's going on, to such a degree that even people who weren't involved, like even if you don't have the code, you can like disassemble code, right? You can take other people's code that they never intended for you to actually see. You can just take the software and kind of disassemble, so you build what is kind of like the code they wrote when they wrote this. It's not actually that, but it's like so when a human writes code, they write code in a human compatible system, a programming language, and that usually gets compiled in some way and gets like translated into machine language, like how the machine works, right? And so you can take that and disassemble it and build a human understandable thing again, right? This is how you reverse engineer code, that you don't have to like reverse engineer software that you don't actually have the source code to. So you can always do that. So the specific aspect of computer software is that it is understandable for people who know what they're doing. They can take it apart. They can see, okay, this is how it does things, which helps us find bugs. It helps us, judge. If something goes wrong with the software, we can go, oh, this is why. Now, the problem with these machine learning and a lot of AI technology is that machine learning models is that you train them, and they're so complex that even the people who train them, the people who invented them, the very researchers that work their whole life with these things don't understand how they work. I mean, they understand how they work, but they're not in a specific way, right? This thing they might have trained to recognize cats in photos. They don't understand on a fundamental level how the computer does that. And that's a very specific aspect of especially machine learning. There is research into creating like models that are understandable, but we're not there yet. So that's called explainable AI, so that the researcher can explain to you how the algorithm arrived at a certain decision. Now, this is very important when you get down to so for example, self-driving cars use this machine learning to recognize objects, right? They use a lot of machine learning models. That's the way they work. That's the way how they figure out, they're driving along the road. Because they can't see like a human. That's how they see the world, through these trained machine learning models, which is problematic because you can attack these models. There's security vulnerabilities. I've talked about that on the show before, but the other interesting thing is that, when you come to the, we talked about this before as well, you come to the fact that the self-driving car will have to make decisions at some point that affect life and death of people. The trolley problem. There's two people running on the road. The car's going. A driver will have to make a decision like, do I hit the person that's on the road, or do I swerve off the road and possibly kill myself and the passengers in the car? Decisions like that. Now, there's a legal problem that arises from, having, basically having to place blame. So if a driver does that, and he might end up in court and then have to defend themselves about the decision. But there's also, legal insurance reasons. For example, if the car does that, who's at fault? The manufacturer, the person who wrote the AI algorithm, who do we sue, basically? And that's a legal problem, but there's also an ethical problem, because you could argue, and I would argue, that to have such a thing operate in our current society, it would have to be explainable, right? Our whole legal system is based on that. So if I drive a car and I kill somebody, then there will be an investigation, and I might end up in court, and I might have to explain what happened. And that is kind of the basis for me. Like, that's my responsibility, right? That responsibility is the basis for me being able to drive a car and be part of what goes on in society, what goes on outside, on the roads. That is kind of like, if I'm out in public and I'm attacked, I can defend myself. But if I hurt somebody, or even kill somebody or whatever, then I'll probably end up in court, and I'll have to explain. The police will do an investigation, and I'll have to explain to the state what I did, and that is just inherent. So anybody who acts, to abstract this as far as I can, anybody who acts in public has this responsibility, right? That is part of, that's how our, accepting this responsibility is how our social systems work. This is why we don't live in anarchy. That's how our state works, right? If we now have machines, how can they have this responsibility? Who has this responsibility? The machine can't have the responsibility. You can't put the machine on trial, right? So somebody will have to, the company who produced it, the person who wrote the code. And, with normal software, you will have that. Let's say there is, and we've had this happen. I don't think we had the lawsuits yet, but, with planes, that Boeing software problem, if you have planes crash, you will have an investigation. There's somebody is responsible. Somebody wrote the code. And for our legal system and our system of social responsibility to work, you'd have to arrive at a point where you can blame somebody, right? Either the programmer or the guy who ran the company or whatever. You have to blame somebody. If you can just get off blameless, because you can say, well, at the end you point to this machine model that you trained in your machine learning model, and you go, I don't understand how this works, because this is how machine learning models are. I don't understand how it works, and that's just the way it is. This creates a very specific, that's a huge problem, and I don't think a lot of people have understood this yet. That if to paint this very bleakly, but I studied politics and history, so I always go down to the darkest parts of humanity, because they surface, if you look at it in a historical perspective, they surface sooner or later. If you were a politician and you wanted to kill people, and you wanted to come off without blame, personal blame, ethical blame, you would create a machine learning algorithm, right? I mean, you could always blame the person for, having set up a political system where people get, of course, right. But on this very specific thing, you could just say, well, there's no, our state decides who lives and who dies based on this machine learning algorithm. And since we don't understand how it works, we just know it works, nobody is really to blame. Which is a very interesting ethical dilemma. And, going back to Star Trek, this is why I love Star Trek, real Star Trek, the old Star Trek, not the current Star Trek. This is always something that Star Trek has dealt with. Like in the original series, it has nothing to do with AI or machine learning, but they get down to a planet, and there's just people going into chambers and disappearing, and then they figure out, it turns out their whole system. So they had, like, I think too many, like they had overpopulation on the planet, and there were wars, and so they just figured out that the most efficient way to run this planet and to avoid wars is just have simulated wars, and the computer just picks people at random, and they just go in a room and die. They just get killed, and so that solves all the problems. Now they don't have actual wars, and they don't have overpopulation, and everything's fine. And then, of course, Kirk goes. I think that's where the famous thing, where he blows up. There's a very famous gif where he just blows up the computer and leaves. That is just, I think that's from that episode. Kirk, of course, goes, completely violates the Prime Directive, like he would. It goes like, this is not like ethical, right? This is not human. And I'm always like on this kind of side of the argument, like even if that would be the best like solution to solve all problems, it would still be a very inhumane solution, right? If it comes down to the wire, and you have the chance between, well, you will have to kill people, and you have the chance between like humans making that decision and a computer making that decision. I personally always go for the human, even though the computer would probably make better decisions. But like, I wouldn't want this kind of decision made by computers. And I think it boils down to this kind of, it's not understandable. Humans, humans are very different, and I often don't understand them, but I understand them better than computers. And like in the case of machine learning, it's at the current level we're at, it's a fact that it's not understandable. And you have to place trust in that what the model does is best. And I mean, if you have a self-driving car and it works, yeah, it's kind of obvious that it works. But still, this is not something I'm comfortable with, and I think, ever be comfortable with. And this leads me into the topic that I am actually, the theory I want to discuss, which is basically, we are living in a world where lots of things already are decided by these kind of algorithms, or what people would call artificial intelligence. Because we have lots of data, we live basically in surveillance capitalism. Everybody has data about us, the state, companies, and they get more and more data, and they want to use this data, which makes sense. If you're the company, it makes sense. Which has led to a situation where if you use your credit card, there is algorithms that decide, is this actually a valid use of your credit card, or is it like, is there credit card fraud, right? Do we block the credit card, right? If you go fly to another country and it looks weird, then there's like an algorithm that decides. Generally they work really well, of course. That's why they're being used. It's kind of, the machine learning system has been trained, and it now decides, well, obviously in these cases, most often that's okay, so Fab can keep using his card. These systems decide largely if you get credit. If you apply for credit at a bank, generally your risk, your credit score, this is all like evaluated by this kind of thing. In some countries already, like insurance policies are decided by these kind of things, and that's why obviously companies always want more data to kind of feed these systems to make decisions. And my general problem with that is that I think it's very inhumane, and it's very as I explained, and it's very, it's generally right now it's used from an optimization standpoint of the company, right? That is a large problem with these kind of things. They're not designed. These algorithms are not designed to do what's best for society or for people. It's what's best for the company, and I think that is. The problem is, if anybody's concerned about, capitalism that should make you extremely concerned, because we've seen in the history that this what is good for companies never leads to a society you want to have, right? That's not the optimization generally you want to have in society. The only people that want that optimization are the shareholders of the company. And I don't think that's how we should run states. But that's another decision, right? Another discussion. But generally, so we have more and more of these systems, and they're being used everywhere. The police uses this in certain countries, to do some really weird fucking pre-crime analysis, basically like Minority Report kind of thing, where they trying to figure out where crime is going to happen and all of that. And the discussion here is never about whether that works. Generally, these systems are being used because they work, right? The issue I have with this, and I think if you listen to this podcast and you're relatively critically thinking about these kind of things, the issues you should have is this something we actually want? Is this like better for society? All these kind of innovations are sold to us generally by PR people or propaganda people, on a basis that this is good for everybody, which it isn't, right? Simple so just an example. This is something that will be coming down the pike. Is happening in some countries. In other countries like Germany, it'll happen pretty soon, I think. Cars have all kinds of sensors now, and your car insurance company will sooner or later, voluntarily or not, they'll kind of force you into it by lowering your rates or raising them if you don't do it, and lowering if you do. They will get all kinds of information about your driving, and then good drivers will get cheaper insurance, or good in whatever the machine thinks is a good driver, and that will be sold to you, including by my colleagues in the press, as being good for everybody. Which if you think about it critically, it isn't. Because, car insurance companies, the system of car insurance we have right now works. It works very well. You crash your car, the other person gets paid by the insurance company, and the insurance companies make a hell of a lot of money. And these systems will be optimized to just save them more money, which you don't need to do because they already make a lot of money. All the people that work for insurance companies have good salaries. The people who are high up in insurance companies have amazing salaries, and it all works. It'll be sold to you, right? This lower, like road accidents and stuff like that, which is something that I think has to be proven. I don't think that's how humans work, right? I don't think if you raise rates for somebody who has more accidents, they will have. This is already happens already now, and they will have less accidents. That is not how it works. Like some people drive more, I would say, to be sexist, which I think in this case is actually, I would actually argue if we do scientific studies, you could probably prove, I think people who have more testosterone in their system drive more aggressively and probably cause more accidents, including killing themselves more often. I think it's just the way that human biology works, but that would be a thing, and I don't think like by raising their rates you're gonna you're gonna change that. It's the same like we had this discussion now that petrol is more expensive and diesel. People are supposedly driving slower, which is not the case. At least I know this in Germany. Everybody keeps saying, including journalists. I've had this argument with journalists over the last half year, maybe 50 times, and I was like, no, people drive slower now, and I always go, no, actually not, because there's some data you can look into, which is like from, I think, TomTom, and like a company that does the back end for pretty much any navigation software on your phone. They have data about, I don't know, probably 85, I think it was close to 85% of all people driving around in Germany right now, and they were like, no, people are definitely not driving slower, actually driving like the speed. I think the thing in discussion was on motorways hasn't changed at all. I mean, there is, of course, some people who drive slower, but there's other people who, I don't know, probably drive faster or whatever. So in the end, statistically, people are not driving slower. And that's the same kind of discussion. But everybody thinks, hey, it's gonna change. So these systems are going to be sold to us with this idea that there's an improvement happening somewhere, and I think a lot of the time actually there isn't. I think a lot of the time this is not actually improving systems, at least not for society, right, or the consumer. This is always employed by companies. I think sooner or later it'll also be employed by the government and states to optimize. But it won't be optimized. Like, governments don't optimize processes using systems like this to improve the life of their citizens. That's what politicians tell you, but in the end, it's bureaucrats, and they just want to improve the process, i.e. they want to make it easier for them to do their work. Kind of like companies. Companies save money that way, and governments in the end as well, like in the government bureaucracy on that level, I think functions very much like a company, except they will generally not calculate this in money. They will calculate this in like time saved or whatever. And I think this will create a world, to come back to the two kinds of people, the ones with the loaded guns and the ones that do the digging, where we have two kinds of people. The people who understand these algorithms and who program them, and also the people who control them. And to that, I would say, generally I'd label them as technocrats, bureaucrats, and the financial elites. So, the actual programmers, the people who implement software, the people who use it in companies, bureaucrats in companies and in the government, and the financial elite, i.e. the people that control this, because they control the companies. And I think that'll largely be like that. And let's call it a caste system. And you have those two castes. And I think that caste will largely be really companies, because I think if you look at how the world's going, the state will end up buying this technology from companies, because this is too complex a thing for a government and a state agency to figure out, right? And we see this already when it comes to technology, cloud technology, data analysis. They all buy solutions from company solutions. I talk like a PR person. They buy software from people, from companies. So these companies will be in control, right? And even if they don't understand how the machine learning model works, because you can't, they're the ones in control of the knobs, right? They train the model, and they can, after their own wishes and what's best for them, they can, adjust these models, and so make society do what they want to do, because on the other side, the other caste is the people who do what the algorithms tell them to do, whether they realize it or not. And that's all the other people. Consumers, all kinds of consumers that use products which use these algorithms. Politicians, I don't count them into the other caste. I think those are the ones that do what the algorithms tell them to do, because these algorithms, are Twitter, Facebook. This is how we perceive how the world works. So, that's the people that don't control these algorithms take their view of the world from those algorithms. And I think there will be, depending on what you're talking about, there will be, of course, it won't be a stratified caste system, like in India a few hundred years ago, because there will be overlap, right? There will be some people who control certain algorithms who take the rest of their worldview, right, from other algorithms, which they don't understand. So I think at some level, everybody will be in the caste that do the digging, because everybody will be kind of, our whole society will be based on these kind of systems and these algorithms. So everybody will kind of do what certain algorithms say, like, even if they don't realize, because these are like, you listen to music on Spotify, it kind of decides, if what kind of music you get in, that you get discovered. So that's a very benign example. But then on some things like Twitter, we get your information, and you might watch TV, but like the TV is made by journalists which read Twitter or whatever, and they'll get their information filtered through an algorithm. And they get their information filtered through an algorithm because that's how they analyze what their audience reads, watches, whatever, right? So the advertising company or whatever company makes the content management system that the editorial people use to decide what they're going to write about or talk about, there's an algorithm involved there, which kind of decides what these people think is interesting and which these people think they should do. So, journalists, consumers, politicians, even, activists, everybody basically, the media, everybody will be based in the second group. And, to some, you might be CEO of a company and controlling a company that does that controls a very important part of how, we're in a world now where all cars are self-driving and you're basically in charge at the end of the component that decides who gets run over. You kind of got there. So you're in that caste where you control that. But on everything else, understanding, who your country's at war with, because, your news from why are we at war with Russia gets filtered through other algorithms that you don't have control over. So in that respect, you're in the other caste, right? And I mean, if you look at it from an even higher level, I mean, this is just power politics, right? It's nothing new. So we always had a kind of system like this, where some humans control other humans based on the power they have or whatever they do. But I think that it's getting more organized, right? By creating a technological framework. I mean, it's kind of, the internet is part of it, but, machine AI is part of it. By having more and more decisions depending on computers, this gets more and more organized and in a way also more and more stratified. And what is interesting is that we're just at the beginning of this process and people already don't realize that, right? They don't realize that the whole people in general think, okay, they watch TV or whatever, they watch the news, they read read the press, read websites online, and they think they know what's going on in the world, but they don't realize that everything they see is filtered through these kind of algorithms and these kind of things. I mean, right now a lot of it isn't machine learning, but it's artificial intelligence, but it's all algorithm and it's moving more and more that way. And we're moving away. The problem with machine learning is that we're moving away from, it's bad enough if everything you do and decisions are made for you by software. You work for an insurance company and you log on in the morning from your home office and everything's fine. But basically the decisions, you're in charge of deciding if a customer gets a credit. But basically that you're not making that decision anymore in today's world. Basically there's software that you use that at least pre-decides a lot of that. And first of all, people don't realize that. I think even the people working in those jobs still think they make that decision themselves. And secondly, we're moving from a system where at least that is based on software that somebody can understand, where everything gets more and more complex, and we're moving to systems that even the people who write them don't understand. And that's when it gets very, very, very dangerous, I feel. I mean, it's dangerous enough if you can manipulate other people with this kind of thing, but that's what always goes on. To me, that's just politics, and it's just how the world works. But if we arrive at the point where we're not even doing that ourselves, we're not even manipulating other people, but where we have computer systems that we don't understand manipulate people, I think that is extremely dangerous. And what I find even more dangerous is that techie people actually think that that's better, because they think the computer makes correct decisions, because it's a computer. And then but what they don't understand is that, like, what is a correct decision, right? Is it a moral decision? A computer can't make a moral decision per definition. Like, what is a correct decision? And it's all based on data, right? It depends on how good your data is. That's something that if you do a course at a university in artificial intelligence, that's the first thing they will tell you. It all depends on your data. You have to have good data. You have to have a lot of data and you have to have good data. But sometimes we don't have good data. Like, one of my pet peeves that we actually get to in the feedback section at the end of the show as well is global warming, where we largely overestimate the data we have, or how good that data is. And you could throw that into a machine learning model and go, let this computer decide how we run our lives from now on, so that we can minimize global warming. And the computer would come up with decisions. And I think a lot of people today would say, well, we have to follow these because we put all the data in there and the computer made computer decisions. So they're correct. They're more correct than a human who is biased and, emotionally involved. And let's follow those decisions. But they don't see that all those decisions are only as good as the data you put in. And how do you know how good the data is? And where does the data come from? And mostly the data is gathered by humans again. So you have that human factor in there anyway, because, the human might have there's selection bias inherent in where the data actually comes from, because there's some human who devised the process of collecting the data. And that in itself is selection bias, right? And people don't see that. And I think that is very, 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 very dangerous. I mean, this is the most dangerous thing about this is, and I'm going to sound like an old man, and I am an old man. I'm turning 40 next year, so I'm an old white man. So I'm basically the devil. But when you get old, you have some experience. You look at the world longer than other people. And I am somebody who grew up. So I was born in 1983. I got my first computer from my parents in 89. I was 6. And if you had a computer, 286 at that point, where you had I recently occurred to me that I've been playing video games for 33 years, which is a third of a century, which is scary. But like, when you had a computer back in the day, you had to like initialize the mouse, and you had to kind of learn how your operating system works, right? Every time you install a game, you'd basically have to hack around in DOS and fucking install new drivers by hand and like edit the auto exec button. And they gave you back in the day, and everybody who's as old as me or even older will recognize this largely. If you're a nerd and you did this, it gave you an understanding of how computers work, and that still to this day, like computers have like there's a computer not in my fridge, but in a lot of like there's a fridge and there's a computer in there, right? And it's very different from the 286 I had back in the day. But I kind of understand that at the core of that is still a system, kind of like me hacking back with DOS. I mean, it's changed a lot, but in the end, I have kind of an understanding of the levels of technology, right? I know what a chip is. I know what RAM is. I know basically what a BIOS is, how a computer copies things from RAM to storage and all these kind of things. What it can do with an internet connection, what it can't do with an internet connection. And people who are like in their 20s now have absolutely no concept of this, because they grew up with, devices that are amazing. Like, I had the first iPhone. The first iPhone was amazing. It was a quantum leap almost in technology, because it basically transcended this idea of like an operating system, or like, of the parts. You just had this device and it was almost magical because it kind of does things and you don't have to understand why. And that's how all computing devices work these days. So people who grow up now, how would they know? Right? It's kind of like me with a car. Like, this is an example that always gets brought up by other people as well. If you grew up in the 70s or whatever, you'd have to know a lot more about a car, because today's cars are just, you open the bonnet, or like, even if when I got my first car, you open the bonnet, there's like this plastic thing and there's an engine under there, but you don't even know. You don't even know what an engine looks like. You just, if something breaks, you bring it to the mechanic. And that's where we are with computers. And that in itself isn't bad. Like, I'm not saying that. I mean, it was a nightmare. Fucking, every time you install a game, you basically trash your operating system, and you didn't have the internet, and you have to kind of figure out how to fucking get it going again. Computing was a fucking nightmare back then, and it's nice that it's not like that anymore. But it has the downside that people just treat computers, like this magic panel on the wall. Which is interesting to me. I mean, I've talked to about Star Trek: The Next Generation before, which is kind of pioneered a lot of, like, that's where we have the idea of an iPad from, and basically the iPhone. That's like basically just because TNG existed, right? But since that was a science fiction from the 80s, you have this. It's very interesting. It's a very big contrast to our world today. You have a world where a lot of the technology is basically similar to technology. I mean, we don't have spaceships, but we could build like a computer that's just like a panel in the wall, and that kind of interacts with you. I mean, we built like Alexa voice activation. Hello, Alexa, turn off the lights in the kitchen, just in case somebody listens to this loud in their house. So we kind of built that because of Star Trek, right? Because, computer police, computer find all references to whatever, what were the Bell riots. Computer cross-reference all mentions of the Bell riots with Benjamin Sisko or whatever. That's where we got these ideas from. But interestingly, in Star Trek, in the old Star Trek, there's a future where these people have this technology, but they still understand how it works. So they kind of have to, because they're on the starship, and when something breaks down, fucking Geordi LaForge rips open a panel, pulls out the isometric chips, and starts fixing the thing. But we're moving into a future where the people. I mean, we have this. I don't know if it's gonna be that way, because basically, the Enterprise is a military starship, and they're like basically the military, so they are trained in this kind of thing, right? But like, they even show, like, civilian ships, and these people know how this works. But people ride around in like basically semi-autonomous cars now, and they have no fucking idea how this works. Like, there's no panels you can rip open where you can fix things. Like, when you bring that to a shop and you say this thing doesn't drive correctly, like, the shop doesn't do that. They just like download a software update from Tesla HQ, right? They, not even the mechanics in the shop understand how this shit works. And that is such a, like, we're moving into a future that is so different from this future that was envisioned in the 80s by people who, had to like write their own auto-exec bat, probably. There were the same people who wrote these shows. It's interesting. It's interesting and scary to see these parallels and where they diverge, how they didn't really foresee the future correctly. Because if you have technology that works basically like, seamlessly like magic, computers, then of course you have kids that grow up that never get into any contact with that. Like, you have people that, like, when something in a computing device breaks down, like, I still have, even though you can't do that largely these days, I still have the reflex of, I want to know what part broke, and I want to fix that. And that's something that people today just don't have anymore. Like, younger people don't have anymore, because they are used to a world where the devices, when they're broken, get thrown away, or they bring them to a shop, somebody takes them, and they get them back a day later, and it's fixed. And they have absolutely no understanding of how the hardware works, like how the software works. And, this all, of course, gets tied in with, you don't buy software anymore, you rent it. So you don't even have like the feeling of ownership anymore. Largely people don't buy cars. Like lots of people just lease cars. And you get this with all kinds of things. And I feel like I fight against like being the old man saying, yelling at clouds, going like, this is horrible. But when I see also that our society and our democracy is being impacted by these processes, and the same kind of approach to that, where like we can't understand how these processes work, and we don't even want anymore. We don't even realize that these processes are at work, right? So I did a very early episode on the show where I was very much against electronic voting, and like that is a thing where I think anybody should see the danger, right? Right now, we know how it works. Like we have literally in Germany, we cast our ballot on paper, we get the paper to a place, and there's humans who count that. I mean, they put it into computers and it gets transmitted, but there's a human who literally counts all the paper pieces, which has its problems. It's slow, that people make mistakes, but it's a process that you can observe and know how it works. When we move to the point where it's all software and you just click a button and then it gets counted by the computer, that is one thing. I mean, you can manipulate that and people probably won't notice, whatever. I talked about that before on that episode. But now imagine we move a step further where we have machine learning, which then decides what people actually voted for. If you start, let's democratize democracy. Let's get away from this old-fashioned voting system, and let's just all like put our stream of consciousness ideas into a machine learning, into AI, and then the AI decides how our country is run, right? That sounds far-fetched, but I believe that's where it's going, and that like fucking scares the hell out of me, and should scare you too. And I think that's why we need a third group. We have this caste system, but we need a group of people who rebel against that, who don't want to be part of that system. And I hope that the listeners of the show will be like at the forefront of this group, right? I think a very important group where you go, I don't want to be in this, like with the Mahatma Gandhis of this analogy. We're trying to disassemble this caste system before it's even built. We're the ones saying, no, these things shouldn't be decided by computers. And if anything is decided by a computer, it should be, we should understand how it works, and humans should make the ethical decisions involved. And yeah, I mean, I hope you agree with me on that. If you don't, or if you do, Private Citizen Press, let me know. I'm always interested in feedback, of course. But I think we need this movement and it's probably going to be us old people, because I don't think young people even see this anymore. I mean, I've talked about before how, like, the scientific method and the problem with facts, how people just accept things as fact that blatantly aren't, and how they just buy propaganda. And I'm already like, if I meet somebody and they unironically and without like reflecting it and without having a discussion use the term artificial intelligence, they just use that term, I already don't like trust any decisions they would make in this kind of, in the topic we're talking about. Because if somebody uses that term and doesn't immediately realize that what they're talking about has nothing to do with intelligence, and therefore the term itself is extremely misleading. I don't know how I can, like, they obviously, like, they're almost a danger to society, I feel, because, like, I mean, if you work for a PR company, okay, that's your fucking job. But like, if you're a politician or like the journalist who just writes the words artificial intelligence in an article and doesn't understand what it is. Like, I would never write an article and just use the term artificial intelligence. I would always classify it, what I mean, how, like, I would actually probably have a little, a paragraph where I explain that artificial intelligence has nothing to do with intelligence, the stuff I talked about in the beginning of the show. So people are just incredibly, they're not critical. And I understand that. I understand why that is. I talked about that on the show a lot because people just want to live their lives. But, and that's okay. I mean, I understand people have enough, like, it's not, as we said, always ask the next question, but that's very uncomfortable. Like, it's an uncomfortable thing for yourself. You make yourself, you aim to misbehave if you do that. And that's generally not seen as a good thing in society. But, like, it amazes me nonetheless how people are very eager to just sign over their responsibility. I guess that's laziness as well. Like, I've never understood how you would want a self-driving car. I've never understood this, right? I've learned to drive a car when I was, like, I don't know, 17, like, even before I could have actually a driver's license legally. I learned to drive a car. I think it's a relatively easy thing to do that, pretty much anybody can learn how to do. And I've never understood this. Oh, I don't want to drive for 4 hours or whatever. I literally don't understand that. I don't understand this mental laziness. I just want to. I do understand how you're sometimes lazy and I want to sit in the thing, but that's what trains are for, in my opinion. Like, I really struggle, and I don't mean, I'm not saying this to be contrarian. I struggle with the concept of having all this technology to replace something that is trivial, that I've been doing since I was 18, almost every day of my life, that actually, I understand, I derive joy from it, but some people don't. Like, I find driving extremely relaxing. I mean, I hate people on the road. It's also very frustrating sometimes, like everything, like anything you would undertake in this life. But I struggle with that, and that's my thing. Like, people often think I'm contrarian, but like exactly with tech topics and with lots of like this AI discussions, I arrive at points where I think, like, what problem is this solving? Like, how is this, like, hello, Alexa, turn on the light in the kitchen. I don't understand what Alexa solves. Like, people go like, oh, when I'm cooking, and I want to change the song, I don't have to, like, pull out my phone. But I have a fucking iPhone. It's already this is basically magic. Fucking can do anything from this fucking phone, can control my music. I don't have to go to the living room and change, like, the knob or, like, put a button. Like, that is already, like, but that little step where you go, okay, I'm cooking, I'm too lazy to put, like, the cooking spoon down or the knife down, wipe my hands on a kitchen towel, take my phone and do whatever I want to do. No, I have to say that. I see where the phone and controlling everything from the phone is a significant value add to me having a CD player in the other room. But this little step from, like, pulling my phone out and just having to say something, which doesn't work a lot of the time, to be honest. Like, I know people who have, like, Google Assistants and Alexa, and, like, the amount of time they just go, like, I had two voice messages from a friend today, on this very day, in this afternoon. I had 2 voice messages that a friend sent me. And in both voice messages, she tells me something, and then she's talking to Alexa, and Alexa doesn't do what she wants to do, and she basically goes, Alexa, damn it. Like, the thing doesn't even work correctly half of the time. And for that, you're employing, like, fucking data centers and, like, the power and the internet all of that. Whereas my phone can do that locally because it's a very, very powerful. I never understood this value add, and that's, like, a lot of my my problems I have. And that's probably why I'm an old man. But that also makes me see things critically, right? Like, why are we outsourcing this to a system in the end we don't understand, which is going to lead to all kinds of different problems when actually the way we do things work. And, I really, really appreciate my wife. And one of the things I appreciate her for is that she always fights against this fab. You're an old man, so for a long time I said I don't want to be on TikTok. She's like, you have to be on TikTok. You're a tech journalist. You can't just get old. You get old in the brain, you stop, right? You stop and then you die, which I talked on the show a few episodes ago as well. When you stop, you die. And I appreciate that. I think that's very good. So I kind of try to, I don't want to be against this kind of technology just because I'm set in my ways, right? And I think, voice command is amazing. I want to be like Captain Picard. I want to do the, lights on Earl Grey hot. But the question is, can we not, first of all, why are we doing all of this in a cloud? Why do we have the most powerful computers we had? They're so much more powerful than anything, we had 20 years ago in our pockets or all around our home. And we're doing all the computation in the cloud. The only reason we do that is because companies, they have control. They have control over the data and the algorithm. That's the only reason, right? We could also do these things on the computers we have. Not all of it, of course, but but we're not even optimizing for, we do not optimize these systems for what's good for the consumer. We optimize them for what's good for the company running the thing, and that's the wrong optimization. And that is the main problem with these caste systems. There are two problems with this future that I see developing. First off is that we will not be able to understand a lot of the systems there's three problems. We will not be able to understand a lot of the decisions that these systems make by the very nature of the systems. The majority of people will not even understand that these systems make decisions for them and how that works. And these systems will not be optimized. And no matter what anybody tells you, it's propaganda, it's PR, it's lies. They will never be optimized to what's best for people or society. They will only be optimized what's best for the companies or the groups, interest groups, or whoever who designs them and runs them. And I don't think we should have a future like this. And with that, I'm going to leave it at that topic. And I will be very interested to hear what you have to say about this, because this is something I just basically came up with because I've been thinking about it a lot. So please let me know. And I will now let you know how to do that. You go to privatecitizen.press. And there's a contact link at the top, and there's information under the heading producer feedback and pretty much all the show notes. Well, there's some episodes where I don't do feedback, but generally, like this one, privatecitizen.press/episode/131, where you will find ways to contact me. And I'd love if you do that. That would be amazing. That would be very cool. Let me know your thoughts. Am I just an old man? Is this inevitable? Is it going to be bad? Is it maybe am I panicking? I talked last episode about George Carlin, saying the problem with climate change, and the problem is not the planet but the people. Am I maybe through my biases, seeing a problem where there maybe isn't a problem, or maybe it's not going to be that bad, or maybe it's just inevitable in the future? Please let me know. I would love if you have some input. Speaking of input, we had Butterbeans, who wrote a comment on the last episode on Strava, of all places, which is an app where you can log sports, and I logged my running there, and on my most recent run, which we can actually look at, but not in that tab because that is not a good idea. I'm streaming this live on Twitch, so I don't wanna leak some information that I shouldn't leak. Wait, let's open that in an incognito tab. That's probably better. I should have logged out there before I did the show. Yes, so on a run I did where I ran 10 kilometers in 1 hour 20. If you think that is horrible, you have to. So it says 989 calories, which is wrong. It's kilocalories, which is so it's off by a factor of 1,000, which is for running websites a bit embarrassing. Anyway, also you have to. I have to remind you that I ran with 10 kilograms of weight in a plate carrier, so it's probably a hell of a lot more calories, and that probably explains the 1 hour 20, which still isn't good, but it's I was well cooked by the end of it. Anyway, on this run, Butterbeans comments, not exactly the right forum for this, but I thought episode 130 was great, Fab. So I said, thanks. I got a kick out of him actually replying on there. I think that was actually quite cool. I thought that was great. I'm glad you liked episode 130, which was obviously the previous episode where I talked about George Carlin. I mentioned that before. So very cool. And we also had this is something I'm not going to read out because it's massive, but Petit Michel wrote a nice post on the forum where he talks about climate change and like his experience and his basically educating himself about climate and climate science. And as I had said, like my issue is that I don't understand, and I actually mean this, I don't understand certain things, and I would love people to explain them to me, and I've never had an explanation that that has been as easy that I could understand it, but still as detailed enough that it would hold up to me asking the next question. So I like his approach. He basically links things that he's read about, and it's really cool. It's very long, so I'm not going to read it out. I put a link in the show notes, privatecitizen.press, and I want to take this because this climate change topic is important. This is something I've talked about recently on the show as well, and I think it's something we need to talk about. And I kind of want, because I have these questions, and I really don't have the right people to ask them to. I would like to actually kind of brainstorm this in the community. So I will create a topic. I don't want to do this. I don't want to take away from Petit Michel. So I'd be very happy if you and all the other producers on the show actually, participate here. So I don't want to take away from your topic, but I kind of think it bears creating its own topic, because what I want to do is I kind of want to take up his approach. Kind of collaboratively do something like research, like have a topic where we can talk about climate change and climate science, and basically compare notes, right? And like Petit Michel does here, link things that they've read, and then discuss about this and discuss each other's questions that we have. I thought it would be great. I haven't done this before the show because I still don't know completely how I want to do it. Like I want to take some of Petit Michel's stuff. Maybe I'll just copy his post. We'll see. I'll create a topic in the forum. In the Private Citizen forum, I'll create a specific topic for this, where we can all kind of compare notes and talk about what we've read and what we think. And my hope is that from that I'll get an episode at some point where I can kind of update people on what we've come up with. And if that works, if we have enough collaboration, if enough of the producers actually feel like this is an important topic and they wanna contribute, then maybe it can become a series of episodes. I would find that very interesting. It's definitely a topic that is close to my heart because I think it's very important, and I think that the public discussion sorely lacks. The things are just taken for granted, and then everybody's like, we must do something, and then the solutions, in my eye, often don't make any sense. So I think, this is something where we could actually make a difference and definitely come up with some good ideas for the show. So please, if you're interested in that, I'll create a topic on the forum, and we can get into that. And otherwise, please provide feedback for the show. Go to privatecitizen.press. Links are in the show notes. And the more people interact and the more other viewpoints we get on the show, the better. Because it's just me talking all of the time. And while I enjoy that, I'm an egomaniac. Otherwise, I would do this shit. While I enjoy that, I think it's also, I value people's input. And I think I have very intelligent listeners, which often write in and become producers of the show. So please, get involved. Yeah, and with that, let's move to the end of the show here. Another way you can help out is, of course, keep the show going, because things have gotten extremely expensive, and trying to survive here. I mean, I have a wife, and she also has an income, which helps. But I kind of, I'm trying to pitch in here, and you can help me because I'm a freelance journalist, and we're not swimming in money. So if you want to help out and you think what I'm doing here is actually valuable, you can pitch in. It's called the Value for Value models, all explained in the show notes. Patreon, PayPal, all in there. If you need other ways, if you want to help out any other way, contact me. I don't want to bore you with that. I go into that every show. So let's just stick with thanking the people who've made this very episode happen, who have contributed via Patreon and PayPal. And those people are Sir Galtaran. This is new. Galtaran has specified Sir Galtaran. I'm pretty sure he is No Agenda royalty, which is something I aspire to, but haven't reached yet. Yes, Sir Galtaran. So he's not only supporting this podcast, but also other valuable podcasts. Sir Galtaran, Rodane the Insane, Steve Hose, Butterbeans, Michael Small, One Eye 11G, Jonathan M. Hetai, Michael Mullen Jensen, Jaroslav Lichtblau, Dave, Sandman 616, Jackie Plage, IKN, Bennett Piata, Rizal, Vlad, Avis, Joe Poser, Dirk Didi, Indie Game EX, who's recently received one of the shirts, the top tier Patreon, kind of goodie that you get if you pitch in a lot of money. You get a shirt which he tweeted, which I got a big kick out of. Looks ace on you, man. Indie Game EX, Funny Mansour, Kai Sears, David Potter, Cam, Mika, Mr. Amish, Robert Forster, Captain Eckhead, Crunkle, RJ Tracy, Rick Bragg, Ricky M, Astral C, Barry Williams, Jonathan, Superuser D, and Florian Pigorsch. Thanks to all of you. And I would also like to thank my Twitch subscribers, because obviously I'm streaming this live on Twitch. Sadly, I can't list those because Twitch is not really giving out this information. I had an external website which gave me that information, which broke. And I think that's because Twitch changed their dashboard. And I haven't found a way to get this information out of Twitch. So if you subscribe to my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/Foxtrot Alpha Bravo, Alpha with an F, like the NATO alphabet. Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate all of you. You're helping out. And of course, you can subscribe. If you have Amazon Prime, you get Twitch Prime, which means you can subscribe to one channel for free. And I still get some money. This helps a lot. I'm sorry I can't list you. I mean, you know, if you subscribe during a stream, of course, I shout people out. And I'm thankful to all of you. This is just something that Twitch has done that if I can get around it, if anybody knows how to get around it, let me know. I'll list my Twitch subscribers again. But until then, thanks to all of you on Twitch. You also help out. I'm thankful for that. I'm also thankful to Bytemark at bytemark.co.uk, who British cloud hosting provider who helps, gives me the bandwidth and the servers to host the podcast files, and I couldn't do the podcast without them, so I'm extremely thankful to Bytemark. Thank you, Bytemark. And that's it. That's it for me for this week. The intro song to this show, which I like a lot, is called Acoustic Roots by Raul Kabzali. One of these days, man, if you ever listen to this, Raul, let me know how to actually pronounce your name. I'm giving my best here for 31 episodes, but I didn't have Spanish in school, and I'm presuming that's a Spanish name. You know, I always see Raul and I think of Dr. Disrespect, and he goes, Raul! Thank you. That's an amazing song, which I've licensed for the show because I like it very much. And I'm going to play us out with a song called Why Are We Waiting by Sleepaway Camp. That's, I licensed the rest of the music and the sound effects from Epidemic Sound. And Why Are We Waiting by Sleepaway Camp, kind of like that. So I'm going to see you soon. Still aiming for 2 episodes a week. I'm gonna try. Can't promise anything. Until we meet again, aim to misbehave, rebel against the AI, and always ask the next question.
Life's not infinite, it's the only chance we get. So why are we waiting? Why are we waiting? Will it click? Looking for the next new fix. Is this the new kind of sick? Why are we waiting? Why are we waiting? They say they have the answer, but no one's getting better. They say they have the answers, but it's always pay to enter. And isn't life funny? Make some money, spend it all to feel less crummy, and think that we've made it. Think that we've made it. Well, what else? Sit by ourselves, think about the hands we're dealt and all our guilt. Think that we've made it. Think that we've made it. They say they have the answers, but no one's getting better. They say they have the answers. It's always pay to enter and enter. infinite. It's the only chance we get, so why are we waiting? Why are we waiting?
All right. Yeah, and we got the show in the bag. I think I'm gonna do what I had planned, which is play a bit of New World later. So to do that, I'll have to edit and release the show live on stream. And I'll do that. But I wanna have a little bit of a break now. Probably not that quick. And I'm gonna see if my wife has gotten home. I don't think she has. She's probably still out. But I want to have a look. I want to have a bit of a bio break. And so I'm gonna be back in a few minutes, and then edit the show, and then probably put it out, and then take another quick break, and then we'll play some New World. I'm gonna put on some nice jazz here for you. No, I didn't. I decided against jazz. Some nice acoustic music from Epidemic Sounds, and I'm gonna go to the break screen, but have the music on, and then see you in a little bit, and we'll edit the show live together. I'll be back in a few minutes. Well, wife ain't home, so this was actually a lot quicker than I thought. Than I thought it would go. So let's just edit the show. Get it over with. Let's get that done. So here we go. What do we need to do first? I think first of all, can turn this off. I can switch my my audio back. Let me just see. Shut that down. We go to that 1, 2. Let's see if you can still hear everything. No, it seems like that still works. Okay. Right. Then let's do some podcast editing. Which, you know, as I do this live to tape, it's all like optimized to have as little editing as possible. I learned that in long careers can't talk anymore. A long career of podcasting that, I did a lot of editing for a long time, and don't think that was very smart. But hey, everybody goes to a journey. That was my journey of perfectionism, and why perfectionism is not a good idea. You're listening to The Private Citizen. Okay, let's level. Come on. Load that shit. Let's go and level this first of all. Right? So that the music is like kind of the same. Have the answer. I think that's actually quite good. First of all, get rid of this. I think that's actually.
This is it. Life's not life funny. Make some money.
I think we can leave it like that. Doesn't happen that often, but okay. Always leave a bit of quiet at the end, so that if somebody listens to something right after, the next podcast doesn't set in like immediately. I never liked that, so always do that. You're listening to The Private Citizen, defending your right to have something to hide. This is episode 131 for Thursday, the 10th of November, 2022, the new Caste system. Hello everybody, my name is Fab. I'm coming to you live from Düsseldorf in Germany on a Thursday. This time I'm still trying to record 2 episodes a week of the show and the topic I want to talk about. Show and the topic I want to talk about. So, chapter marker. 2 kinds of people in the world, which kind of applies. Okay, what we're gonna do here is it's left to tape, whatever, but with a little bit of work, you can just tighten this up, which I think is generally a good idea to make things as tight as you can. So the first thing we can do is just cut out some of the time wasted, and then we can also fade that in, I think.
See, in this world, there's two kinds of people.
The way Clint Eastwood just talks, especially in those movies, is just so good.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend.
My friend.
Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig.
You dig. You dig.
You dig.
Okay, so tighten that up. The world, which kind of applies about, you know, two kinds of people in the world, which kind of applies.
You see, in this world, there's.
Okay, we tighten that up a bit too much. Which kind of applies.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns. And those who dig. You dig.
That, of course, is the...
You dig.
That, of course, is the great Clint Eastwood in probably his best role as the man with no name. And yes, there are two kinds of people in the world, those with loaded guns. And we will not be able to... Please let me know. And I will now let you know how to do that. Know how to do that. The show, so please get involved. Yeah, and with that, let's move to the please let me know, and I will now let you know how to do that. You go to privatecitizen.press, and there's a contact link at the. Okay, chapter marker. Save. Remember to save, as Ben Burns always says. Remember to save. Do this shit. While I enjoy that, I think it's also, you know, I value people. Let's move to the end of the show here. The end of the show. I'm very German there. Hello, let's move to the end of the show. Yeah, papers, please. Yeah. Yeah, we must control your papers. Yes, yeah. Let's move to the end of the show, yeah? End of the show here. Another way you can help out is, of course, keep the show going, because things have gotten, because why not? Until we meet again. Did the wife just come home? Did I imagine that? Don't know. Could have imagined that. Camp kind of like that. So I'm gonna see you soon. Still aiming for 2 episodes a week. I'm gonna try. Can't promise anything. Until we meet again, aim to misbehave, rebel against the AI, and always ask the next question. Yeah, we can tighten that up as well. We can tighten that motherfucker down. Always ask the next question. Always ask the next question. And that's
Why are we waiting? Why are we waiting?
yeah, and that's the actual edit. What we do now is we go to view chapters. And we copy and paste this shit. Dip. Right? And then we go to publish. And we edit this shit. And then we back out of this because I don't know. That's kind of how it works. And then we publish. Well, not really. That's just the way it does. It could. In theory, you can put a server at the end of that. It's just like that's not really how I do things. Let's take just this time as publishing time. As good as any. Good a time as any. 38. 58. Go. On the episode numbers, I have to adjust that in a little bit. Yeah. So everything else is in order, I think. Yeah, prepared everything. I have an image. That works. Somewhat fitting to the topic. Yeah, there we are. Almost done. No, we just have to wait for this fucking thing to finish. I mean, we can play music again, right? Just put this like on a little bit of a background thing. Like that, maybe. Wait, I can't see my levels. I can't see my levels. No, I can see my levels. Actually can't work. I guess that's fine. It's fine. Let's check something in the other tab. While we do that. Boom, boom, boom. Alright. That looks good. Alright, I'll just there's nothing really to see. I'll just export that. Yeah, I'll export that and upload it to a server, and there's some stuff I really don't want to do live on the internet for everybody to see out of IT security reasons. So I think I'll just go on another break. I'll play the music and I'll be back in about 10 minutes. See if the wife got home, if I imagine that. And yeah, after that we'll be setting up, and then we'll be playing some New World. So see you in a bit.
The night I nearly filled my pockets up with gold, and I wish the same for you. I wish the same for you. And I had you there to hold me. It was good enough for them, 'cause I was alone. I was the You better tell the truth real fast, and then we're probably done at last. 'Cause I got somewhere to be, and you're done deceiving me into thinking I couldn't do better. Yeah, I know I was probably crazy, thinking someday you'd change. There's nothing left to do now, so I'm playing the game. And so, heartbreaker, I've been working you out. You made loads of mistakes, but none that you talk about. I'm watching every move you make, and I'm on to you. Come on, heartbreaker, give in and surrender to me. You should have probably let me go, but you've got a porcelain ego, talking fast and punching low, making sure that there are no traces of thinking I could have done better. Yeah, I know I was probably crazy, thinking someday you'd change. There's nothing left to do now, so I'm playing the game. And so, heartbreaker, I've been working you out. You made loads of mistakes, but none that you talk about. I'm watching every move you make, and I'm on to you. Come on, heartbreaker, give in and surrender to me. I've been working you out. You made loads of mistakes, but none you talk about. I'm watching every move you make, and I'm on to you. Come on, heartbreaker, give in and surrender to me. Surrender to me, oh.
To fall apart, lose myself, then give my heart away. Come and go in shady places. I used to sit and stare. Now the light runs through my lashes. It's taken 40 years, blood, sweat and tears. You are the love. I can't show you how to start to find your way. I like the old-fashioned way. Give me that sweet love, those warm up and kisses. Oh, life has a quirky way. Circle breaks, we find a new day. And strangers we know become husbands. Every dance has its pace, interlaced, intertwined now. You can't save time. run along, kids. You two will be more than parents one day. You are the love. I can't show you how to start to find your way. I like the old-fashioned way. Give me that sweet love, those warm open kisses. Oh, you are the love. Sing it. You are the love. I can show you how to start to find your way. I like the old-fashioned way. Give me that sweet love, those warm open kisses.